Welcome once again to another helpful clip from the digest brought to you in conjunction with ELT Central. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell, and that will notify you whenever our clips drop. Also, if you can like the videos, that will be a tremendous help. Today, we're going to continue the pronunciation workshops and run through each of the sounds that our letters make when we use them in different words. English is not a phonetic language like, for example, Welsh, where every letter has the same sound. We've got lots of letters that make different sounds when we use them in different words. And so this tutorial and workshop should hopefully help you with your pronunciation. It's not only the vowel sounds that change either. Some of our consonants also change sounds, and that can be pretty confusing, which is why this clip will be helpful to you if you're learning English. Hopefully, you'll already have watched the first pronunciation video, and so you'll be familiar with the phonemic characters that I'm going to use today. The phonemic characters are in the chart behind me right here, and it might help if you download one of those from the internet and print it up and have it next to you while you're watching this video. Now, what the chart has are a bunch of symbols. Now, they represent sounds, not letters from our language. And these are the things that go on to make up our pronunciation. As I'm English, you're going to get an English accent from me. Now, my accent is not regional, it's standard. And so again, hopefully that's going to help with your listening skills too. I'm going to run through the whole alphabet for you so that you get a better idea of all of the sounds that our letters make. As the majority of them have more than one sound, there are very few of our letters that have only one sound. As with many rules with English, there are the odd exception here and there, so I'm not going to give you a rule-based tutorial here. Just going to give you the most common sounds that we have for each of our letters. It's pretty extensive, and I may have missed one or two out, but I'm pretty sure I've got them all. A good exercise would be for you to perhaps stop the recording just before each letter and have a go at some of the exercises I said. Say, for example, guessing how many different sounds each letter has and giving examples for them. And you can also see if yours match any of mine. Hopefully they will, but hopefully you'll learn something too. Let's concentrate on the vowels first, and then we can move on to the consonants a little bit later. Now, some learners have a particular problem with hearing the letters, as their own language pronunciation can make it a little bit confusing. I know in many of my classes I've spelt out words before, and when I look at the students' spelling, they've put an E or an I in place of an A, or an A or I in place of an E, and so on. The vowels are particularly troublesome, as are the letters G and J for some learners who speak French, for example, as in their native language, they swap those around. It's J and G instead of G and J. So that can be quite confusing. The obvious place to begin is right at the start of the alphabet and the first vowel, which is the letter A. Now, this letter has many different sounds. And so maybe what you can do here is stop the video and come up with some of your own suggestions. So how many different sounds do you think the letter A can make? Stop the video, have a go, and we'll come back to it. Right, the first sound is an A sound. It's very, very short. It's A, and it's this symbol here. And we can see this sound in words like can, flan, pansy, fantastic, unplanned, abscond, and so forth. The second sound we have is the A sound, and that comes in words such as pay, gale, wait, ate, whale, placate. And so while we have different spellings in the words, the sound is the same. And this is true in almost all cases of English spelling and pronunciation. Each sound has lots of different spellings, and each letter has lots of different sounds. And so it can be a little bit confusing. And that's something that you're going to have to get used to as you go on. But the more you read, the more you listen, the better you will understand. Now, the third sound with the letter A sounds like an eh sound. It's an eh sound. And this sound comes in words such as any, and many, Now, the fourth sound is the schwa sound. And as I mentioned in the previous clip, it's the only phoneme that has its own name. And that's because it's the most common sound in the English language, and certainly the most common vowel sound. Again, see what I did there? And depending on where you come from in England, you could use it for and. In practical speech, we might say, and where do you think you're going? So we don't say, and where do you think you're going? We say, and where do you think you're going? It also comes out when we use the word can in a sentence. So for example, I can do that. So I don't necessarily say I can do that. Unless I emphasize, I wouldn't use can. I would use can. So I can do that. Or it can come at the end of a word like zebra. And you see there, it can come at the end of a word like zebra. We don't say zebra or zebra or zebri. We say zebra. And the fifth example here, and Harry Potter might like this one, because the letter A all sounds like an ah, as in wand. So Harry could say that he wandered slowly over to his wand. Wand. The sixth sound for the letter A is the or sound, or, and might sound strange until you fall over or call out for help, or if you go shopping at the small mall. So this is the or sound, or. You might also be surprised to find out that the letter A also has an I sound. But yes, it really does. And I wonder if you can guess where. Why do you think it has an I sound? Well, if you were a Viking and you came from Denmark over to England, you may well have gone on to pillage one or two villages. Okay, so pillage, village. And I'm sure you'd probably have been quite happy pillaging our villages. The final sound for the letter A is an R sound. And I guess that kind of might be a little bit obvious. It's much easier. So you would only have to ask your father, and he will tell you he'd rather have gone farther on his travels. Moving on to the next vowel, it's the letter E. And this letter has a lot of different pronunciations. The first is obviously the E sound, which is kind of like the letter. And this comes in words like evil, evil, and he, we, equal, be. And then we move on to the E sound, which is much shorter. It's the sound, and this comes in words like every, echo, enter, epilepsy, elephant, and tons of other words too. Following that, we have the I sound, which you may already have spotted when we saw the word elephant. So it's the I sound. This is the symbol, elephant. So if we said the elegant elephant ordered his tickets for the cricket match through the jungle telegraph. Okay, I know they don't live in the jungle, but you catch my drift. So that's the I sound. The next sound is the schwa, the one that we had with the A sound as well. It also works with an E. So the letter E, when it's in a word like pollen or woolen or forgotten, it's an sound, the schwa sound. The letter E also has an E sound. And this comes out in words like material, cereal, series, bacteria. Okay, so it's an E sound. And the sixth sound is, believe it or not, it's a Y sound. And this happens when the letter E comes in front of a U. Say, for example, like Europe or euphoria or euphemism. So that's the Y sound. And the next one we look at here is A, believe it or not. And there aren't many instances of this, but one of them is the word deity. Deity. Okay, so it's the A sound, deity. Then we have the U sound, which might sound a little bit strange when you first hear it, but when you hear words like flew, through, and due, then you can understand why it has the U sound. It also has an EU sound as well, EU. So that sounds a little bit odd, doesn't it? It's like an I and an U together, EU. And it's close, but not quite the same as the previous one we've heard. But we hear this in words such as few and newspaper and muse, news, muse, few, newspaper. And finally, we have the oh sound. And again, very strange, but we do hear it. Normally, this is in words that we've sort of stolen from another language. We've taken them and we use them as our own because we don't have words for them. So, for example, entrepreneur, it starts with an E, but it's an O sound. So, O, entrepreneur, entree. And also, if you're a film buff, you will know which genre you like. So, genre, entrepreneur, entree. Now, that makes 10 sounds for only one letter. And that's pretty greedy, I'd say. Now we come to the letter I, and this has only 3 sounds. One of them is odd because we have a couple of dots over the top of it, rather than just the one dot that we normally use. So again, what we'll do is we'll start with the most obvious. It's an I sound, I. And this one comes in words like in, is, initiative, instant, pillow, finish, ignorant, sing, fish. So that's an I sound, I. Following the I sound, we have an I sound, I. And that comes in words like sign, fine, high, align, might, kite. And the third is the E sound, which, as I mentioned, in words such as, for example, naive, okay, the E sound, naive. And if I'm completely honest with you, which of course I am, I can't think of any others where we use the I as an E, but we do use it. And when we spell it in English now, we use N-A-I-V-E, and with just the one dot rather than the two. Coming to the letter O, which is the 4th vowel in the English alphabet, it too has a number of sounds. And the most obvious is the one I've just used in the word obvious. So it's O. This one here, O. On top of, offer, opulent, ostentatious, opposite. And then we have the O sound. And we see this in words like only, pony, close, odious, and show. And the third sound we're going to hear is the oo sound. And the only ones I can think of off the top of my head here are oo for two, I'm going to the shops, and two, I bought 2 ice creams from the shops. Can you think of a word that starts with an O but sounds like a W? There's one I can think of, and once you hear it, it's easy. Okay, so that's an O with a W sound. The final vowel is, of course, U, and it also has a number of sounds. The next one's more obvious. It's the schwa sound, and we see that in words like cut, upper, supper, upwards, under, and we can use it for another dog, which we call a mutt, mutt. The next is the sound, and we hear that in words like push, put, mush. And then another sound for the letter U is the oo sound, and this appears in words like unscrupulous, July, the name Julie, and the word scruples. But there aren't many cases of this sound, and you can always let me know if you find more. I'm sure there are tons of them. Here's another. The letter U can also sound like an I. But how does that happen? I. How does a U become an I? Well, if you're too busy to look over, I've just told you. Business. Busy business. Now, what about an sound? How can a U possibly sound like an Well, it can, and that depends on where you live. If you live in Bury, it's easy. Or if you're going to bury some treasure, you might be able to guess. We also have the y sound with the letter U, and I'm sure you'll know that if you go to university, or if you've got a unicorn hidden in your garage that you may use only on unusual occasions, you'll understand that the U can also have a y sound. All right, now we're going to move on to consonants that have more than one sound. Now the letter B only has one sound. It's a b, 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 bomb. Although that example there, we've got two B's in it, but the last one is silent. So sometimes it doesn't make a sound at all, like bomb, plumber. And moving on to C. The first it sounds like a s, s. So we see this in words like ceiling, certificate, certainly, celebrate, cyborg, and cycle. And in the middle of a word like society, Pacific, and pacify, and of course there are plenty more of those. Now, when the C is followed by an I and an E or A or Y, it has a soft S sound. Although, of course, we've already seen there are exceptions to that rule. When we have the hard C, it's a K sound, and it comes in words like cat, crack, crescendo, crucify, cretin, clown, and so on. Now, there's also a ch sound. For example, if we use Italian-derived words like a ciabatta, ciabatta bread, or cello, or names like mine, which is Pacino, or the famous designers Dolce & Gabbana. Okay, and moving on to the sixth letter of the English alphabet, it's an F, and that makes a couple of sounds. The first one is obvious. It's the F sound. It's unvoiced, as in first, few, five, fever, fastidious, flat. And then there's the hard F, which is voiced. It's a V, and this only comes in one word, which is of, and no other. So hopefully that's not going to be too confusing. After F, we've got the letter G, which has a number of sounds. The first of them being the hard G in words like golf, grain, give, get, gone, and gopher. It also has a J sound, J. For example, with words like giraffe, gigantic, gentle, genius, and with names like George, Jeffrey, Jean, as in Jean Vincent, or Jeanette. There's also a zh sound, and that the zh sound comes in words like garage, menage, and visage. Now, of course, garage has a couple of pronunciations. You see the garage or garage, and so the zh is in the latter of the pronunciations of those. I'm sure some of these words also originated in France, and so it takes on the same or similar pronunciation for those. Now, when it comes to the end of the word, it kind of goes nasal for some pronunciations. For example, the word sing, singing, ringing. Although if you're from Birmingham in the UK, you'll love this letter more than almost all of the others, and you will bang on about singing the songs. Because people from Birmingham, they like to enunciate the G's at the end of their words as well. The next letter is H, and the pronunciation for this letter is H. It is not H, as someone would have you believe. I can't understand how teachers allow their students to continually mispronounce this letter, but they do. Some teachers do also, and it drives me up the wall. The pronunciation is H. Repeat, please. H. H. Very good. Now, if anyone tells you it's H, I want you to tell them that they're wrong, and point them in the direction of this video, and I will argue it out with them. Okay, so the H, although it has only one sound, the H sound, it's a breath sound, an aspirate sound. In words like hair, hello, holiday, hilarious, it does get missed off a couple of words, such as hour or honesty, and other words. The next letter is J, and that makes it makes a number of sounds. The first one is the J sound, And that comes in words like jump, jester, jazz, jive, and it's only in foreign words like junta or jalapeno, or with names such as Julio or Juan or Javier, does it sound like an H. It's actually the fourth least used letter in the alphabet, the letter J, believe it or not. The 11th letter is K, and it's a K for most of the time, like in words such as kick, kangaroo, keep, keyboard, work. Although it can be silent in a number of words, usually when it's followed by the letter N, for example, knowledge, knee, new, knuckle, know-how, knock, they all sound like they begin with the letter N rather than the letter K. The 12th letter is L, and the L is usually just that, all sound, all. And we have this in like, lovely, lick, clam, play. However, it can go soft, as it does when it comes at the end of the word, like feel, maul, or in the middle, like almost, or marble. And of course, it can completely disappear when we use it in words like calm, balm, and palm. And also, again, when we use foreign words, for example, the Spanish dish paella, and it's a y sound. Or if we go to Marbella, again, it's a y sound. As is the J, actually, in Mallorca. That's a y sound as well. So add that one on too. Okay, the next letter is the letter M. It's the 13th letter of the alphabet. And in the main, it gives us just a plain old sound. We hear this in a sentence, for example, such as, my mother may be a melancholic murderer making mayhem. It's a sound. There are times that the M does hide away, very, very rarely, and it's normally when there's an N after it, and this will happen in a word like mnemonic. I don't know if you ever saw the film Johnny Mnemonic. It kind of disappeared very, very quickly after it first came out. Not a great film. N is also, I think it's just a sound. So nobody, nowhere, nothing. Yeah, it's just a sound, unless you can correct me on that, of course. We've already done O, so we'll move on to P. This letter is usually pronounced P, as in party, pajamas, practical, pretty, pointless. And it's unvoiced, it's P, as opposed to the B voiced B. So this is the P, unvoiced sound. It also goes silent in a number of words, and again, this is normally when they precede the letter N, and the pronunciation takes on the second letter. So in words like pneumatic, pneumonia, and actually the longest word in the English language, which is pneumonal microscopic silicovolcanoconiosis, just in case you're interested. The letter Q is pronounced as a K, and this never changes. And we see this in words like queer, quaint, quack, quite, and the letter Q is the second least used letter in the English language. Moving on to the letter R. Now, the letter R is one of those that it's more commonly used by our cousins from across the pond, but in English we tend to have more silent R's than our American friends do. For example, I park my car in a dark part of the car park, and I organize parties for the poor people. Now, not a single R is sounded in that sentence with a Brit accent, but with an American accent, with a Yankee tongue, that would be slightly different. Should I say it? I park my car in the dark part of the car park, and I organize parties for the poor people. Probably a really, really poor American accent there, but never mind. We do sound the R at the front of words like rabbit, rabies, right, reckon, and really, and of course in the middle or close to the end of a word if there's a vowel or a vowel sound at the end of it, in words like, for example, marry, coriander, menagerie, horrendous, terrible, courageous, those kind of words. Moving on now to the letter S. It can make a number of sounds. I think 4 sounds, this one. The S sound, as in sit, silly, salvation, solicitor. And then, of course, we've got a Z sound, when it comes in the word organize. And yes, it's an S in organize. It's not a Z. It might sound like a Z, but it's spelled with an S. If that was the case, then why wouldn't we spell schools with a Z? It also sounds like a Z at the end of words like sounds, beavers, sails. Then we have the sh sound, which comes in words like sure, sugar, surely, but it's not always SU because, for example, we have super. We don't say super unless you're James Bond, of course, being a Sean Connery. No, so it's a sh sound for sure, sugar, and surely, and some other words too. And finally, we have the sh sound for the letter S, the sh, sh. Okay, so it's like a sh, but there's a voice with it. Sh, 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 sh. The mouth shape is exactly the same. And this word we hear when we say things like treasure, leisure, pleasure. The next letter we come to is the letter T, and this can be a funny one. Sometimes we hear it, sometimes it goes missing, sometimes it goes glottal, sometimes it jumps out from the sides of our tongues, and it's a mixture of a sort of a T and a K together. All right, okay, let me explain. All right, so when it's at the start of words, we hear it like we do in words such as take, torrent, track, train, top, and today. So that's the T sound. Now, when it comes in the middle of words, and certainly this is true of Americans, it often becomes a D sound. For example, butter, 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 city, city. I remember I was while I did my diving course, my PADI course. I took my PADI license, and when I watched the video, the woman continually referred to water as water, and it freaked me out. Water. How do you get water from water? I really have no idea, but she managed to do it. We also have a glottal stop, and this is where the T sound goes missing. So plenty of Scottish and English people have a problem with pronouncing the letter T for some reason. I don't understand why. They say things like photo and party and 80. I've even heard one Scottish radio DJ when she was talking about a period of time, and she said, "in, in." God, it's terrible. 1888 is what she meant to say. And then on another occasion, one of my neighbours, she was a Mancunian, so they have a particularly strange way of pronouncing words. But she was calling to a daughter. Her daughter's called Katie, and she was shouting across the road, "Care, care." So the T had disappeared for a, and the E had turned into care. And they used to call me Ande. They'd say, "All right, Ande," but they wouldn't say, "I've got a bad ne." They'd say, "I've got a bad knee." And so I could never understand why they could say knee but not Andy, and it was Ande, right? Ande. It didn't bother me too much, but it was one of those things. Now we move on to the letter V, and you'll be happy to hear this has only one sound. It's voiced, and it's a V sound. Okay, and it comes in words like clever, very, volume, impervious, provide, and diver, and of course loads more besides. Almost at the end of the alphabet now, the letter W. This letter has a couple of sounds, and it goes silent on more than a few occasions. For example, if we talk about a wrist, or you crash your car and your car's a wreck, or if you wreak havoc, if you go and cause loads of trouble, you wreak havoc, or if you're wrong about something, of course, the W goes missing. We don't sound it in those words. While the rest of them are simple enough, of course, we've got where, we, woeful, work, wickedly wonderful, Welsh Wellingtons. Okay, so that's all that W sound. The next one is a little bit of an oddball letter. It's the letter X, and it has a number of pronunciations. And it also comes out as itself, as we'll see. Now, when we use it in a name, and it's normally a foreign name like Javier or Jimena, it's a H sound. But when we use it in a word like a xylophone, it has a Z sound. Z, so xylophone, as does the often overused word xenophobe. Xenophobe. So it's a Z sound. However, with the word X-ray, it's pronounced X, like the letter itself, X. All right, we're getting to the end of the alphabet now, and this is the letter Y. Now, this also doesn't tend to get used very much. It has 5 different sounds. So the first one we're going to look at is the E sound. So likely, carry, berry, and there are plenty more, of course, of those. Now, when it starts a word, it's very similar, though we begin kind of halfway through that sound, and it's the Y sound, like with these words here, yellow, yesterday, you, your. It can also hide itself away in some words. If we look at the words, for example, prayer or mare, there's a Y right in the middle of those words, but we don't hear it. And it can also have an I sound. And the I would come in words like mystery, misogynistic, gymnast, and gypsy. Now, it can also have the last sound for this one is an I sound. And this happens if we look at words like fly, why, my, and bye-bye. Okay. So that's the Y, the letter Y, and the Y sound. And finally, we come to the letter Z, which only has that Z sound. And we see this in words like zoo, zombie, zero, zany, Zara. Yeah, and of course, there are plenty of words that have got Z. However, it is the least used letter in the English alphabet because it's right at the end. I hope you learned plenty from this clip, and I will present another workshop very soon on the sounds that multiple combinations of letters make, because they can be really confusing, and that will give you a much better idea of how we pronounce our words, and that will make you a far better listener and speaker of the English language. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the bell. And if you've got any comments or would like any clarification on anything that I've mentioned or any of the subjects that we present here, leave a comment below the video and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. You're also more than welcome to suggest any subjects that you might want to learn about, or how I might be able to help you in future clips. Leave your suggestions in the comments box. Okay, great talking to you. See you again soon. Ciao for now.